What is going on, everyone? Nostalgia925 coming at you with another Digimon comparison video. It has been a while, I know. In fact, it has been a while ever since I had a consistent YouTube program of releasing videos every week. Maybe to be brief on my current situation, I have to tell you that I finished my master thesis and I'm now waiting for the results, so it's already a good thing. I also had a couple of papers to write, one about nuclear deterrence and its inefficiency. Actually a very interesting subject, if I may say so. The other was about the issue behind the democratic accountability of intelligence agencies. I'm sure you can imagine that these took a lot of time, both were about 5,000 words. Now, for this video, I'd like to give a really special shout out to a Digimon fan who wanted me to discuss, or rather compare, the D team in the franchise Dinosaur King to the team of DigiDestined in Season 2. Digimon fan requested this video over 30 times if I'm not mistaken. That is what we call not giving up. So here we go with that video. Let me say that I am really not familiar to the Dinosaur King franchise. That is why I relied on the community for some clarifications and opinions. That way you will not only hear what I have to say, but also what others have to say. Let us get right into it. Shout out to my Patreon supporters Cameron Donnelly, Heben Bob, Marin Solar, Nathan Jones and Ren Segev. I'm finally getting more and more time for myself as I don't have to write any papers anymore. I just have to study for the exams, but on my word, exclusive content for Patreon is on its way. Because the Dinosaur King franchise can be seen as a guest on this channel, I would love to discuss that franchise first, along with its team, before we make the comparisons. For those who have no idea what the Dinosaur King franchise is all about, it all began with a young boy called Max Taylor, a happy-go-lucky guy who loves dinosaurs. He probably inherited that love from his father Spike Taylor, who is a paleontologist. Speaking of paleontologist, I admit that I always loved studying dinosaurs, and actually still do. That is part of the reasons why I really dig Digimon, considering all the dinosaur references in it. Early in the morning, young Max fell off his bed and witnessed a meteor fall from the sky, crashing in a forest near his place. Curiosity took him, which is not really a surprise. I think I myself would also go and take a look. He called his two friends to go along with him. One is a young lady called Zoe Drake, a caring person that can be scary and a bit bossy, but ultimately good for those around her. From what I could read about Zoe, she sort of reminds me of Hermione Granger of the Harry Potter franchise, as both her and Zoe have a tendency to boss their partners around. The other friend is named Rex Owen, a young man who lives in the same house as Max. That is because he was adopted by Max's father. He's usually quiet, at least compared to his two other partners, and has a mysterious past that he occasionally thinks about. Arriving at the crashed meteor spot, the three explorers would find stones with the symbols of lightning, wind and grass on them, along with a card with a picture of a Triceratops on it. Max rubbed the card on the stone, accidentally activating a Triceratops, which would later be called Chomp, and would become the faithful companion of Max. By the way, speaking of Triceratops, know that in the Digimon franchise, its equivalent would be TRICERAMON, a Digimon we already discussed and in fact haven't even finished discussing. The video is called Explaining TRICERAMON DIGIVOLUTION Line video. I will make sure to link it in the description box or at the end of the video. Rex Owen activated his card, giving birth to a Carnotaurus, which would be named Ace. By the way, a Carnotaurus may look like a T-Rex, but it is not, even though both are carnivorous. Zoe rubbed her card and the Parasaurolophus named Paris came to be. Very quickly, they would stumble upon a team called the Alpha Gang, a group whose leader wants to build his own dinosaur kingdom and rule over it as the Dinosaur King. In order to get there, the Alpha team is looking for the 6 element stones that can summon and control the dinosaurs. The D team already possessed 3 of these elemental stones: lightning, associated to the Triceratops Chomp, grass, associated to the Parasaurolophus Paris, and wind, associated to the Carnotaurus Ace. In order to stop the Alpha team from acquiring the stones they were missing, the 3 youngsters teamed up and formed the D team. They worked along with Dr. Spike Taylor, Max's father, and Reese Drake, which is Zoe Drake's older sister and owner of the D Lab, which is the D team's standard base of operations. 4 years after the events of Digimon Adventure, the digital world was invaded by a mysterious person known as the Digimon Emperor, who enslaved Digimon with what is known as a dark ring. To fight him, 3 new DigiDestined were warped to the Digimon world. Among the 3 you had Davis Motomiya, an extremely stubborn person with a big heart and an optimistic mindset, Cody Hida, a young but very serious and wise fella, in fact wise beyond his years. Last member would be Yolei Inoue, the oldest of the 3. Very energetic and confident. Now unfortunately I cannot really get into the details of these 3, not because I don't want to. I want to discuss each Digimon character separately in individual videos. Some of the characters have had a very troublesome past and were going through challenges which are truly worthy of being explained thoroughly, because in a sense I'm sure many people will be able to relate to these characters. Just to give you a brief example, I did briefly talk about Mimi's character development when she went through the 9/11 terrorist attacks in a separate video. I'm sure to some of you it might be a surprise that the terrorist attacks were illustrated in Digimon, and quite frankly, so was I. You can find this video in the description box or at the end of this video. Let us take a look at their partner Digimon. David is partnered to Veemon, the one with the most affinity for hand-to-hand combat due to both his attacks and personality. Veemon's natural champion Digivolution form is called Exveemon, a mythical dragon that is extremely powerful. In fact, it was so impressive that David preferred that Veemon used this form instead of the armored forms Flamedramon, a Dragon Man Digimon with the attribute of Flame, or Raydramon, an animal Digimon with the attribute of Thunder. When you realize that the Triceratops Chomp has the attribute of Lightning, I believe it might maybe be good to quickly explain the difference between Lightning and Thunder, because I'm sure many people do confuse the two. Here's a quote I found on the internet, you can find a link to it in the description box. I quote, "The difference between Thunder and Lightning still confuses many people. In fact, there are some who think that both are exactly the same thing. Thunder is the noise that is produced by and that follows lightning. It is characterized by a loud, rolling noise that seems to sweep across the sky. The sound is somewhat like successive sonic booms coming from planes passing by and is distinct and recognizable. Lightning is widely used to represent thunder. This is because thunder is not visually perceptible, only orally. Thunder is produced by lightning, so it makes perfect sense that it's the closest representation." Oh, and just in case, Exveemon was explained in the Explaining Veemon Digivolution line video. Yolei Inoue partnered Hawkmon, a polite and very formal Digimon. It can naturally digivolve into Aquilamon, a giant bird with 2 gigantic horns growing from its head. To finish, Cody Hida partnered Armadillomon, a Digimon with an easygoing nature, which is a sharp contrast to Cody, who has a samurai-like personality. Armadillomon can digivolve to the Digimon Ankylomon, a Digimon based on the Ankylosaurus, a very strong dinosaur, often compared to an army tank or boss, as it is a heavily armored dinosaur with a large club-like protrusion at the end of its tail. The protrusion was probably made out of bone. Ankylomon's, however, is made out of iron and has spikes coming out of it. Considering that Ankylomon is based on the Ankylosaurus, this would actually make it a very interesting opponent for the D-Team partners. I did discuss Armadillomon's Digivolution forms in the Explaining Armadillomon Digivolution line video, but then again, we are not done discussing it. Alan Tang wrote the following in the NostalgiaNat5 community page: "Seeing how in Dinosaur King the humans can use cards to give their dinosaurs power-ups like new forms and stronger attacks, it isn't fair that you're limiting the O2 cast to only champions when the opponents get to use their transformations and power-ups. I think it's only fair if you let the O2 cast use their Digimentals, and in this case, Magnamon would win." It is most definitely a fair point Alan Tang brought up. I know I'm really limiting the options of the Digimon chosen in this battle. The problem is that when it comes to Digimon power scaling, it is always very difficult because they can easily get such a power up that the entire battle wouldn't even make sense. You even claim in your comment that if Magnamon were to be in the battle, then Magnamon would win. In fact, you didn't even feel the need to include the rest of the team, as Magnamon alone might be sufficient enough to face the D-Team. The powers in Digimon are sometimes so ridiculous that I could even permit myself to compare Digimon to Dragon Ball. We did that in the episode where we discussed Goku's Ultra Instinct mode versus Omnimon's Omega Force technique. And that is why in this episode I'd prefer that we remain with Exveemon, Ankylomon and Aquilamon. But we can of course discuss how the battle might evolve once the armored forms are involved. For that we always have the comment section, or we could simply make other videos, so there's nothing to worry. Ransegev already following. This battle depends on a lot of factors. Is it a 1v1 or group battle? Is it with or without support? Also a good comment. It's going to be a group battle, but then again, as there are only 3 in each group, to best help your team, logically you are going to face one opponent. So in this case, to keep it simple, we can imagine Yolei and her partner Aquilamon facing Zoe and her dino partner Paris. Cody and his partner Ankylomon will face Rex Owens and his dino partner Ace, and to finish, the 2 leaders, meaning Davis and his partner Exveemon, will face Max Taylor and his partner Chomp. But you have to know that a battle can take multiple directions, especially when we consider all their abilities, which will be pretty clear once we'll predict how the battle will go. When it comes to your question about support, this is perhaps the most difficult to this battle. Dinosaur King works with a system of cards which the human partner can use for their partner dinosaur to perform a move. I will discuss a few of those attacks that I think might have a strong impact on the matchup. I know it might not really make sense, but then again, we are all a team, so in this comment section, I think we can figure this one out like we always have. Alright, let us discuss our first clash by discussing Chomp and its capabilities. Andres Marrero was so kind to give us an elaborate explanation of what the Triceratops can do. He said the following. Chomp is very much the Pikachu of the group, with its element being lightning. Arcs of electricity railgun blast from between its horns, just outright calling lightning down from out of the blue, and even a deadly lightning charge where Chomp pierces the opponent and electrocutes from the inside out. Chomp is perhaps the most dangerous due to his electrical attacks, and Digimon being digital life forms do not like such attacks. So Chomp to them is essentially a walking mass of disintegration or radiation, or whatever analogy you want to use. They cannot get near him without being torn apart and being irreparably destroyed. Digimon like Redramon could possibly be more resistant to such effects because they use digital recreation of electrical attacks, but they are still made out of data and would be torn apart by that interaction. While the comment is extremely interesting, there are a few things I need to add in Digimon's defense. For starters, I think it's a little bit dangerous when we say that Digimon is but data, because in the end, when you had the humans going into the Digimon universe, they could get wet, they could burn, they could be manipulated or poisoned, despite the claims of Digimon being just data. When you say Digimon do not like attacks such as lightning because they are digital life forms, I cannot agree, or at least I can only partially agree, because there are many Digimon who have electric or lightning based attacks, some of which would high probably be more powerful in volts than Chomp's lightning. Those attacks did not necessarily harm those it was aimed at. Tentomon is one of the descendants of ancient Beetlemon who passed his electrical abilities to future generations. We've seen Tentomon use its electric attacks without incapacitating its target. Kabuterimon, who is Tentomon's next form, has stronger electrical attacks, and yet there are more than enough examples of it not being effective, or in the least not enough to stop certain opponents. On top of that, I'd like to tell you that Digimon in general is not necessarily bound to the same standards as Pokemon, where you have, for example, one with the fire element being weaker to water. Even though that's how it may look like when you play certain Digimon games, that's not really how Digimon works. And to back it up, let me give you an example. Here you have Candlemon, one you would consider a flame type. The Digimon is actually the Little Flame. It is said that if the flame were to go out, Candlemon would lose its life. Obviously, it would be in its nature to avoid water at all costs. Its ultimate level, on the other hand, Skull MERAMON, who we discussed in explaining MERAMON DigiVolution Line video, improved in its attack and defensive strength, giving it intense destructive force of its flames. In the face of its flames, water and ice simply evaporates. This is just one example to show that not all Digimon are bound to the same Pokemon strength and weakness standards. A Digimon can have a certain advantage over another, but that does not necessarily mean that it is due to the nature of its attack. To continue on your comment, when you say that Chomps can summon lightning down out of the blue, well, yes, it is true, he has that ability. The problem is that the lightning that it summons is not an attack like what you would imagine lightning do once it comes out of the sky. The lightning always comes down on Chomps to enhance his abilities. Here is what is written about two of Chomp's attacks. One attack is named Electric Charge. The description says the following. A bolt of lightning hits Chomp from above, surging him with electricity, and he charges and rams his opponent with it. Another attack is called Ultimate Thunder. The description says the following: while wearing Dino Tector armor, a series of lightning bolts frame Chomp's path with the final bolt stunning his opponent in place. Then Chomp's tail armor glows and rockets him forward into his opponent, hitting them with a ball of electricity before tossing them away. Pay attention, that is with the Dino Tector armor. I'm not sure if we can allow such an announcement. Now, because Chomp's attack is not known as one to hit airborne opponents, it would mean that Exveemon has a serious advantage over Chomp's, as it could use the air freely, and hitting an opponent in the air is much more difficult than when it is floored. That alone should change the pace of the fight drastically. On top of that, Exveemon has projectiles, and there is no reason to believe it won't be able to fire them from the air. If Chomp's already has troubles hitting an airborne Exveemon, there's no way, unless luck is on his side, that it will hit an airborne Aquilamon, who flies through the sky at max speed. If you take that literally, Aquilamon's speed almost rivals that of fighter jets. On top of that, one of Aquilamon's characteristics is that it can detect an enemy from afar. If a member of the D team loses Aquilamon from his or her sight, they might also be finished, because not only does Aquilamon also have projectiles, it also has an attack where it descends at full speed towards its opponents with the horns first. Because the members of the D team look organic, I cannot doubt that Aquilamon's horns would pierce through, especially when we have to consider the speed. Because flight and mobility is clearly at the side of the Digimon team, and assuming that some members of the D team would be keeping an eye on these airborne opponents, what about Ankylomon, who cannot fly? If Chomp were to fight Ankylomon, it might lose quicker than if it fought Exveemon or Aquilamon. Let me explain why. After digging into the Dinosaur King franchise for more information, I noticed a strong similarity between that franchise and Pokemon. The dinosaurs in the Dinosaur King franchise work in a similar system where an element is either stronger or weaker against the other. Let me take a quote from the Dinosaur King wiki. Lightning dinosaurs, like Chompies, are strongest against water dinosaurs, as water conducts electricity like lightning, but weakest against earth dinosaurs, because earth blocks lightning. I had to dig a little deeper. When you take a look at the list of Earth dinosaurs in that franchise, you have the Stegosaurians and the Ankylosaurians, and look at that, it is the same species as Ankylomon. This might mean that Ankylomon would have a severe advantage over Chomps because it has attacks that are categorized as Earth, and Ankylomon is an Ankylosaurian. Of course, it is a Digimon variation, but then again, at the moment we can see dinosaurs use lightning, I wouldn't call them dinosaurs either. This is even why Mary Grace Owen wrote the following: those dinosaurs are not just dinosaurs. Pay attention, if we were to follow the logic, it is not because Ankylomon would have an advantage over Chomps that it would necessarily be weak to another element like grass or wind from the two other members of the D team. Ankylomon is not bound to an element, as are the dinosaurs of the D team. So the only luck Chomps could have against Ankylomon would be its electrical projectiles, as we're talking about a Digimon that wants you to get close. Its strongest attacks are physical, and Ankylomon is simply too armored and thus too dangerous up close. The electric attacks could hit Ankylomon and do damage. The question would be, how effective will those electrical attacks be? As you know, even though we're talking about Digimon, I sometimes enjoy including real-life physics, so we're also going to do that here. The issue is that Ankylomon is covered in multiple layers of armor, and one substance of it is bone. Bones are semiconductors. This means that they have electrical conductivity greater than insulators, but less than good conductors. Now, because Ankylomon's tail is made of iron, it can be that the lightning attack of Chomps would do damage. This is certainly very plausible. The question is how effective. And just in case, in some media, like in the English dub, depending on how accurate the translations will be, Ankylomon claims that its entire body is covered in metal plates. So there's no consistency in it either, but maybe we could consider that. If the electrical attack doesn't work and Ankylomon and Chomps would go physical, I really doubt Chomps could have that much of an impact on Ankylomon, especially when you consider that it is weak against Earth dinosaurs and that Exveemon and Aquilamon are up there in the sky. Andreas said the following about the Dinosaur Ace. Ace is the speedster of the group. His attacks often include duplication and various water-based attacks and combos. This guy will split into multiple and attack you from multiple angles. Add that with its already impressive speed and how it enjoys comboing the opponent into oblivion with no chance of countering, and you got a very dangerous opponent. Ace would be a dangerous opponent because at the moment it uses its ninja attack and multiplies itself in 3, the advantage of the quantity would certainly be at its favor. I don't know how or if Ankylomon's armor would be enough to endure the attack. In the Dinosaur franchise, the attack was used against the Dinosaur Tank, a dino with many spikes on his back. Obviously it is not entirely covered as he is Ankylomon, but still I would say it is well protected, and the ninja attack was able to take him down. Now obviously in the end, we need to measure how strong an individual attack of those clones would be on an Ankylomon that has a body designed for defense. We really need to be careful not to underestimate Ankylomon's armor, and we certainly cannot overestimate Ace's ninja attack. How Ace would battle against Aquilamon or Exveemon is up to debate. Now from what I could see in an episode of Dinosaur King, I noticed that the cards are used for dinosaurs to perform a move or an attack, and here's a very important quote from the wiki page, and I quote, "There is no limit on how many moves can be used by a dinosaur how many times during a battle." This would obviously give Ace a severe advantage, at least over Ankylomon. I can see Exveemon and Aquilamon hover in the air waiting endlessly for an opportunity to attack. Ankylomon would be on the line of fire. If its defense would be strong enough, that is up to debate. To finish, we have the Dinosaur Paris. Paris is the weakest physically out of the 3 in combat, but it has among the most powerful attacks, such as a healing move that fully restores an ally's strength, and a very potent draining attack. She can also utilize a high-pitched scream as a sonic attack to incapacitate foes, distract them, and cause a lot of pain. Paris is sort of like the magician of the team. She can indeed heal her partners to their maximum energy. She can also, well, depending on their human partner, summon 3 pteranodon that can fly. They should be able to, in the least, face Exveemon and Aquilamon up in the air, but you have to know that the 3 are not that impressive in combat. Here's a quote which says that the summoning of the pteranodon during many battles, they're only there to help weaken the opponents, and occasionally they attack the Alpha Gang directly. Though they may normally be untouchable, Terry was able to knock them from the sky and defeat them with Tail Smash in Rough and Ready. Just in case, Terry is a T-Rex that cannot even fly and still managed to defeat the trio with his tail. When you consider Exveemon, who is a mythical dragon that loves the air, or Aquilamon, who is made for the air, I think the trio would only last so long. So how do I think the battle would unfold? Clearly the D team has the advantage when it comes to the abilities. They clearly have more options than the DigiDestined. But that does not necessarily mean that the D team would win. You have to know that I can imagine multiple scenarios where either team would win. Let us be clear on that. My biggest problem here is that the DigiDestined have the advantage of the air, and Aquilamon can see the battlefield from afar. Sure, it may be fighting against 1 or 2 pteranodon summoned by Paris, but again it is only so long before they are going to be defeated. Exveemon has a thumb, so I can easily see it grabbing one of their wings. It also has projectiles. Aquilamon is very fast and also has projectiles. The pteranodon trio are not meant to battle against the strongest opponents unless it is to help weaken them. So they mostly have a support effect. It might only distract Aquilamon and Exveemon, but they won't be enough to defeat them, considering that they lost due to the tail of a dinosaur that can't even fly. Aquilamon along with Exveemon have projectiles which by the way are very powerful and could be aimed towards the battlefield, in the least hitting Paris, who really only has a supporting role. And because Paris never used healing on herself, I don't see a reason why she would do that here. Sure, she may also have projectiles, but I cannot see how she, as a grounded dino, would hit 2 Digimon that are very good at flight. And there's going to be a little problem here. I can imagine that if she instead decides to use the projectile against Ankylomon, that would leave her wide open for either Aquilamon's attack or Exveemon's attack. So, as a dinosaur with a supporting role, she would probably best observe the air. And with Exveemon and Ankylomon that can fly and basically attack from various spots, I really feel Paris would be the first to drop. And after she drops, it's going to be a battle of minutes. Now, the battle between Ankylomon and Chomp again might be slightly in the favor of Ankylomon, but if Aquilamon and Exveemon are too busy fighting Paris and her trio, and Ace joins Chomp in a collective attack against Ankylomon, even with its armor, it might end up hitting the dust. But then again, it is a question of time. Depending on how long Armadillomon will last, Aquilamon with its incredible eyesight and max speed could fly either towards Chomp's blind spot or Paris' blind spot or even Ace's blind spot. And I can already imagine that Chomp would be vulnerable to an attack of either Exveemon or Aquilamon who would use projectiles, because I really don't see why Chomp would try and face Ankylomon up close just looking at the appearance of Ankylomon. Chomp could simply use projectiles and attack Ankylomon from a distance, as clearly Ankylomon wants you to get close. And really guys, the advantage of the air cannot be underestimated. There's a reason why fighter jets are feared. It's because they have the air, they have speed and projectiles to their advantage. If you don't have the proper equipment, you won't hit them. There is no way you will hit them, only if you are lucky. So with that in mind, and I'm hoping I'm not running in circles, I think that Ankylomon on Digimon's side might be the only one to fall. On the side of the D team, I think Paris and Chomp would fall first. How Exveemon and Aquilamon are going to face Ace and its ninja attack is perhaps the most difficult thing to decide. Sure, Ace can use its attack indefinitely, but in the end, so can a Digimon who is battle ready. And Aquilamon does have a great variety in its attack arsenal, like using wind, projectiles, or emitting sound waves to confuse the enemy, which can certainly be very effective to reach a blind spot. If one of the projectiles coming from the D team is capable of hitting either Exveemon or Aquilamon to a point of taking them down, then obviously there's no way the Digimon team would win. The D team really have a whole lot of tools at their disposal, and if it isn't because of being distracted by two flying Digimon, they would easily get the upper hand. So all things considered, in my opinion, the Digimon team would probably have more men standing, at least only if they are able to distract and divide the D team members. They won't necessarily be able to defeat Ace, but again, you really need to understand how much an advantage your opponent has when it can fly and use projectiles. If this battle was really one of life or death, the few tools Exveemon and Ankylomon have are sufficient enough to make them last longer. But I am willing to read what you guys have to say. Let the debate begin in the comment section. You can certainly attack me with elaborated arguments and show that despite our differences we can still respect each other's opinion and have fun in our discussions. I forgot something crucial. When facing the DigiDestined, never forget that the humans have a habit of risking their lives for their Digimon partners. You can bet that Davis, Cody and Yolei would risk their lives to get up close to Max, Zoe and Rex. Cody is smart enough to find a plan, Davis has fought more than enough times, and Yolei is a confident young lady. Fear is a choice, and they have what it takes to fight against fear. The D-Team battle against the DigiDestined would end up in a fist fight, just like the TIE fight against Red in the Greymon battle against Charizard in Screw Attack. If the D-Team humans get stopped in their actions for using cards, Exveemon, Ankylomon or Aquilamon would have no mercy. The end will be quick but very painful. Hi guys, this is the end of the video. I really hope you enjoyed it. I do have to say that I am quite impressed at this subject. So I have to say, Digimon fan, a big thank you for giving me the push, and I'm really sorry for making you wait that long. I hope this video did not disappoint you anyway. I did give it a lot of time to make it, so let me know in the comment section how you think about it. If you guys are new, in the least you know that I'm a YouTuber that really enjoys interacting with those who are willing to leave comments in the comment section. That's the point of why I made YouTube anyway. It's more about the experience. So if you are new, please make sure to subscribe and leave a comment in the comment section. Know that these versus episodes are all placed in the Digimon comparison playlist, a playlist which is always updated, and one where we compare Digimon to many other franchises, may it be Yu-Gi-Oh, Dragon Ball and so forth. So take a look. If you wish to see a particular Digimon comparison video, just let me know in the comment section. Again guys, don't forget to subscribe and I will see you in the next video.